ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरि ओम। सदाशिवसमारंभां शंकराचार्यमध्यमां अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं। शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। उकारस्वन्धकारो वै ऋकारस्तन्निवर्तकः अन्धकारनिरोधित्वात् गुरुरित्यभिधीयते। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्गरवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। ॐ भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयामदेवाः भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैः स्तुष्ट्वागुंसस्तनूभिः विषेम देवहितं यदायुः। स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। ॐ प्रज्ञानां शुप्रदानैः स्थिरजरनिकरव्यापिभिर्व्याप्य लोकान् भुक्त्वा भोगान् स्तविष्टान् पुनरपि दिशनोद्भासितान् कामजन्यान् पीत्वा सर्वान् विशेषान् सुगतिमधुरभुङ् मायया भोजयन्नः मायासङ्ख्यातुरीयं परममृतमजं ब्रह्म यत्तन्नतोऽस्मि। We were seeing the verse 25. So in 24, प्रज्ञप्तेः सनिमित्तत्वम् अन्यथा द्वयनाशतः संक्लेशस्य उपलब्धेश्च परतंत्र अस्तिता मता. So the Karikakara says Sanimittatvam prajnaptehe. Here the prajnapti doesn't mean the prajnanam brahma, but it is the subjective knowledge. So subjective knowledge is the manifested world, whatever is your experience, that you can call it as prajnapti. That prajnapti, like the nanatva jagat darshanam, the manifold world objects, you are seeing so many things in the world, zillions of things, which include the vast galaxies, and then within that many systems, solar system and all that, and within that you have planets like earth, and within earth you have so many inert and conscious objects, which we don't even know the number of them. That is the contention of the Sadvadis, primarily the dualists, who say there should be sanimitta, there should be a nimitta. It can't just happen by itself. You can't say everything is happening within the mind itself. That is their contention. Prajnaptehe sanimittattvam. I think the comment share is not there, so let me share it. Okay. Prajnaptehe sanimittattvam अन्यथा द्वय नाशतः. संक्लेशस्य उपलब्धेश्च परतंत्र अस्तिता मता. We have seen this one, 24. Primarily, the contention is because this is the contention for which the verse 25 is the Siddhanta Paksha. So, we need to again just quickly look at the Purva Paksha so that we will have that continuity. So, he says, Anyata, if you look at the Bhashya, we won't see the entire, but just the key lines. Anyata nirvishayatve sati. The line 3. Sabdasparsha Neelapita Pratyaya Vaichitriyasya Dvayasya Nashataha Nashaha Abhavaha Prasajyeta. So, if the Dvaita Bhava happens, there won't be anything. You can't say Brahma and all that because there is Vishayatvam, Savishayatvam has to be there. Otherwise, only Abhava will be there. Because every experience implies a certain corresponding object, Vishaya. In fact, Savishayatvam, if you look at the line 2, Bhashyakara had explained as Swatma Vyatirikta Vishayata. Iti etat. Savishayatvam means there should be object other than oneself. Okay, that is Savishayatvam. That has to be there because without that Vishaya, you cannot have this perception. Shabda Pratiti, Sparsha Pratiti, Rupa Pratiti, all that is there. So if all this Pratiti is there, that means there should be corresponding object. Therefore, there is a nimittatvam in those objects. Then the objects which are Vishaya, which is outside, becomes nimitta for you to have this experience. It's a basic, that is how we all anyway look at, right? Any normal experience is that there are some objects outside because of which I am seeing all of them. The same thing they are using it as a logical contention to say that because without it, how can there be an experience? And if that goes away, there will be only abhava shunyatvam. Okay, there is will be abhava only will be there. There cannot be anything because everything is about Vishaya, Vishayi, Sambandha only is the whole world. See, any moment except for in the deep sleep, even in the deep sleep, we can say, I am witnessing a darkness. Other than the deep sleep, every perception, there is always a duality, correct? Whether it is dream or waken. In such a case, what does the absence of duality means? Absence of duality means a total above. Because other than the duality, you don't experience anything. That is what they are contending. Okay, this is a Purva Paksha. Don't take it as Siddhanta. Okay, the Purva Pakshi's view is, the Dvaitin's view is, every experience that you are having is only Dvaita experience. Without the objects of Dvaita, that kind of an experience is not possible. Because there is a Sabda, Sparsha, Neela, Pita, Lohita, Ityadi, Pratyaya Vaichitriam is there. Therefore, if the Dvaitatvam Dvaya goes away, then Abhava only will remain. Okay. And there is never a Pratyaya Vaichitra Dvaya Abhava. It is never perceived. Every perception is indwelled. When you are talking means what? You are experiencing duality. That's why you are able to talk. Words are different from you. Words mean something which is different from you. Listener is there. Subject matter is there. So many things are there. So there is nothing called Dvaya Abhava. Therefore, there is a Paratantratvam. It is dependent on your Pratyaya, Vaichitriya is dependent on Paravishaya, which is outside. Bahyartha only is there. Also, brings another thing which is Sankleshanam. Sanklesha means Dukkham. Dukkham also, it's not that you are imagining you are being burnt by fire. You are actually, you see the hand being burnt if you put it in fire. So, Agnidahadi Nimittatvam Dukkham api asti. Okay. यदि अग्न्यादि बाह्यं दाहादि निमित्तं विज्ञान व्यतिरिक्तं न स्यात् ततः दाहादि दुःखं न उपलभ्येत. Therefore, because of these two reasons, what two hetus is giving? One is absence of dvaya would mean abhava. That is one hetu which is not acceptable. Number two, you experience things like pain, which clearly gives you the context to accept that there is a external dependence for your anyapte sanimitam ishyate yukti darshanat nimittasya animittatvam ishyate bhuta darshanat. Okay. Now there are two things he is referring. One is yukti darshana, the other is bhuta darshana. Looking at things by logic and looking at things from what is. In fact, Vidyaranya also in Panchadasi says, he asked the question, how can there be something called Sadasatvyam Anirvachaniyam, like Maya? You have to say either it is Sat or Asat. You cannot say its reality is Sadasatvyam Anirvachaniyam. But he himself answers that, saying that that is how it is, because you don't want it to be that way. Okay, you can't say how can it be like that. So whatever is yatha bhutam, you have to understand. Your yukti has to align to that, is what he says. But here prajnaptehe sanimittatvam ishyate yukti darshanat. Okay, when any prajnapti needs to have a nimitta. Prajnapti is a impression, subjective, manifold, multifold. Jagat means there should be a nimitta outside because of which only that kind of an experience is possible. That you are using logical reasoning. Now, Bhuta Darshanat, from looking at it from what is ultimately there, we find Ishyate, that Nimittasya Animittatvam. Okay. The Nimitta that you are saying is the reason for this Prajnapti, that doesn't hold status of being a nimitta. Okay, so you can actually look at it from two different perspectives here. Just think about it. See, you are saying that something which is outside is a nimitta for you to have this experience. Okay. Now, which means in order for you to establish that that is the nimitta, that nimitta itself has to be established as an entity which exists. Suppose I say there is a mountain outside because of which I am experiencing the mountain through the shape of the mountain, size of the mountain, which I cognize through my eyesight, and then sound which comes from the mountain, touch which the mountain represents, whatever. So that means that mountain, which is an entity which is outside, is the cause for my subjective experience of the mountain. Suppose you say, then the existence of mountain itself is to be an establishable. Nimittatvam should be there. That capacity of being a nimitta should exist with that mountain. But we say it doesn't have that capacity. Okay. Let's now look at the Bhashya. I just gave a high level view based on just the Karika, but Bhashyakara exactly takes the same approach here. Atra uchyate. Okay. Here, let's see. बाढ़म एवं प्रज्ञप्तेः सनिमित्तत्वं द्वय संक्लेश उपलब्धि युक्ति दर्शनादिश्यते त्वया बाढ़म good may it be so एवं this manner प्रज्ञप्तेः सनिमित्तत्वं the experience of the dual world multifold manifold experience. Okay, that is why it's called Prajnapti. It's a manifold. And why it is called Prajnapti here? Why is Karikakara using the term Prajnaptehe? He could have used any better word, no? Because this is very confusing. In Vedantic parlance, Prajnapti means Prajnanam Brahma. So it unnecessarily confuses us by using Prajnaptehe. Why? Because he is using the word right now because he is putting the dualist Dvaitins who are Vaiseshika Nayayikas and Sankhyas against the Vijnanavadi. Vijnanavadins are Buddhists. Vijnanavadins use the term this Prajnapti. Therefore, here he is using the Vijnanavadis arguments against the Dvaitin to dismiss the Dvaitin. That doesn't mean we fully accept Vijnanavadin. We accept to the extent where it can dismiss the Dvaitin. But there are certain aspects of Vijnanavadin also we don't accept. That anyway we'll come to. So that is why he uses the word Prajnapti. For them all there is only that Prajnapti. There is no corresponding Vishaya outside. That is Vijnanavadin contention. But that is correct to a large extent because that aligns to the reality. In fact, Bhashikara and Karikakara, both of them are going to say that. To this extent, we do accept that. That's why he uses Prajnaptehe, this experience of this world. Not world means everything that is there. Idantaya, whatever is cognized. Prajnaptehe, Sanimittatvam should have a cause corresponding Vishaya Dvaya Sanklesha Upalabdhi Yukti Darshanat. There are two reasoning. One is Dvaya is there, then Sanklesha is there because of this two Hetu. Okay. You are saying that there should be a Nimittatvam because of these two Hetus. You are using two Hetus. Because Dvaya is there, because Sanklesha is there, therefore, by Yukti, logically, you are saying Sanimittattvam has to be there for Prajnapti. Okay, this is your contention, right? He asks. Siddhanti is asking the Dvaita Purvapakshi. Purvapakshi who is a Dvaitin. Okay, and then he says Stiri Bhavatavati Tvam Yukti Darshanam Vastunaha Tatatva Abhyupagame Karanam Ityatra. Okay, so for now, just hold on to your contention. Stiri bhava. Okay, Sthiri Bhava means hold on to your contention for now. Tavat Yukti Darshanam Vastunaha Tatatva Abhivagame. Okay, for any Vastu to be understood as it is, there should be a Karanam, which is the external Vishaya. That is what you are saying. May you stand there. Then the Purvapakshi asks, Bruhi Kim Tataha. Okay, I am standing there only. You tell what next. What is your view? Uchyate. So the Siddhanti Bhashyakara is explained. Nimittasya प्रज्ञप्ति आलंबन अभिमतस्य तव घटादेः अनिमित्तत्वम् अनिमित्तत्वम् अनालंबनत्वम् वैचित्र्य अहेतुत्वम् इष्यते अस्माभिः. Okay. Us, it is not the same. For us, there is ahetutvam. Nimittasya ahetutvam. The whatever you are saying, the Vishaya is the cause. Okay. The Prajnapti Alambana Abhimatasya Tava Nimittasya. Whatever you are calling as the cause, you are a Pratyaya Prajnapti Alambana Abhimata. That is you, who the Dvaitins. The Dvaitins are Prajnapti Alambana Abhimataha. They are committed to this point of view that the subjective knowledge is dependent on objects which are outside. Ghata, that is your, for you, whatever is the nimitta, which ghata dehe. Okay, the part is there outside, therefore I am having a part knowledge and part interaction possible. That is what you are saying. Your nimitta is the part and whatever, mountain, whatever we just said, right? Anything which is there. But for us, animittatvam, analambanatvam, vaichitrya ahetutvam is there for the nimitta. It doesn't have the nimittatvam. It is for us, it is, they are not the reason. Okay. How? Katham? The Purvapakshi asks. So Siddhanti says, Bhuta Darshanat. That is the second line. He explains that. Nimittasya animittatvam ishyate asmabhi. Bhuta Darshanat. What is Bhuta Darshanat? Paramartha Darshanat. By actually looking at the Paramartha, you guys are looking at things. Just by your naked observation and general experience, without even looking into it, you are giving a logic. But if you see Paramartha, then you won't see this kind of a dependence. How is it? He explains. Nahi gataha yatha bhuta mridrupa darshane sati tad vyatirekena asti yatha ashwan mahishaha. So he starts with ghata. These are things we have already seen at in many contexts, but Bhashyakara himself is taking this a little deep here. Ghataha yatha bhuta mridrupa darshane sati. The standard stock example, the part you are saying, for us, part itself doesn't have any nimittatvam because it doesn't exist for us. Because part is, when you look at the part, when the actual part is only mrit. Yatha bhutatvam of the gata is mridmayatvam, right? Now, the mrit rupa darshane sati, when you are seeing the mrit, the karya ghata doesn't exist tad vyatirekena. The karana vyatirekena nasti. Yata ashwan maisha. The horse is different from a buffalo. Totally different. Whereas a pot and clay are not that way. You can separate them. Therefore, where is the pot? In fact, he takes another example where he goes little further. He says, Patova vyatirekena tantavaha cha amshu vyatirekena ityevam uttarottara bhuta darshana आशब्द प्रत्यय निरोधात् नैव निमित्तम उपलभामहे इत्यर्थः. Okay, he is taking another example. The cloth does not exist apart from the thread in it, isn't it? And the thread has no existence apart from the fibers which make the thread. And he says, if we proceed that way, okay, to find out the true nature of the thing by going from one cause to the other, okay, pataha tantu vyatirekena, tantavaha amshu vyatirekena, okay, ityevam, this way, uttarottara bhuta darshane, from one existence to another existence, like you went from cloth to the thread to the fiber, then where does it stop? It stops till where you have a name for thing. That's all. Ashabda pratyaya nirodhat. It goes only to the extent where you know the name for those things. Beyond a certain thing, it's just that you don't have a name. Okay. The language will fail us, but we will never get to the root. Sabda pratyaya nirodhat. Naiva nimittam upalabhamahe. The exact nimitta you cannot go and reach. Any object you take, it will keep on reducing itself to something else. There will always be something else. Till a certain point, you will know, you would have already given it a name, you will know what it is. But one more step you go, you won't know the name. You ask one more question, you won't have the answer also. That is how the yatha bhutatvam is there for whatever you are calling as nimitta. The other option is you can take abhuta darshanat. Atha abhuta darshanat bahyartasya animittatvam ishyate rajvadaviva sarpadehe ityartha. The other option is you can take it as abhuta darshana. Abhuta darshana means non-existence bahyartasya. Abhutatvam bahyartasya. What is different? Now he is taking it from the Atma perspective. See, earlier, the difference between Bhuta Darshanat and Abhuta Darshanat, you have to be clear. In the case of Bhuta Darshanat, what are you dismissing? The Nimitta, you are actually going and looking at that Nimitta object, like the cloth. And then that cloth itself you are seeing keeps on reducing, right? Let's take any mountain also, it will keep on reducing. There you are taking the Vishaya. Here in Abhuta Darshanat, the Vishaya Vishayi, that subject object transactionality or subject object, that triputi itself is dismissed from the standpoint of the Atma. That is Abhuta Darshana. Bhahyartasya animittatvam vishyate rajvadaviva sarpade. There we are not looking at the sarpa and then trying to see sarpa is reduced to something else. That is it. We are not doing that. Here we are saying the sarpa itself is dependent on the rajju. Like that, any Vishaya, where you don't have to go from cloth to thread to fiber to atom and all that. The clothness itself is Adhyastham only, Chetana Vastu only, Chaitanya only. Therefore, it is Bhranti. Bhranti darshana Vishayatvacha. Nimittasya Animittatvam Bhavet. Tadabhave Abhanat. There is no Bhanatvam. Bhanatvam is there only because of Chidvastu. So if there is no Chit, where is the Bhanatvam? How is it going to even be available? Therefore, for it to be available, there has to be the Jnapti Swarupa, not this Prajnapti. The Prajnapti needs Jnapti, or the Prajnapti's Nimitta itself needs Jnapti. Nahi Sushupta Samahita Muktanam Bhranti Darshana Abhave Atma Vyatiriktah Bahyartha Upalabhyate. So here from the Atma Jnana only is talking. Sushupta Samahita Muktana. There are three kinds of people for whom there is no Bhranti Darshana. One is the Sushupta, the one who is in deep sleep. Second is Samahita, the one who is collected and in the deep meditation. Okay. For that person also there is no perception, nothing. He is in Nirvikalpa Samadhi. The third is Mukta. For one who is walking, talking, everything, but then doing that also he or she is only in the Brahma Sthiti, Brahma Bhavam. So these three people, there is no Bhranti Darshana. Therefore, Atma Vyatiriktaha Bhahyartaha na upalabhyate. Okay. Nahi unmatta avagatam vastu anunmattaihi api tata bhutam gamyate. Whatever an unmatta is seeing is not the same way an anunmatta, a clear person, views. Okay, the perception is very different between the two. You are seeing duality, so all your logic is based on your world experience because you are within the ambit of ignorance. With your logic, see, only to some extent we can see because in Abhuta Darshana, whatever logic you are giving, if you take it as Abhuta Darshana, right, the second option, the logic that you are giving will not be understandable for somebody who doesn't understand what is Advaita Jnana. That person is dismissing that whole state. No, here we are saying Sushupta Samahita Muktana. The mukti that you are talking about, the Vedanti is talking about, is not even accepted by those guys. Therefore, this argument that you are giving with from a jnani perspective, that fellow is giving it from a Dvaita understanding perspective. So that logic, the hetu that he gave, you are totally dismissing because for an Advaiti, a mukti is a very taken for granted state. Right? It's not a state, but assume it's a state because mukti means actually a state only. No, otherwise you are nitya mukta. Here the mukta means you are, if you are talking from a transactional world, empirical world perspective, then for this person also there is a certain view of what is mukti, right? Advaita. Now, if you give that kind of argument, the Dvaiti cannot accept it or understand it either. Okay, this is like today going and arguing with the Madhva and all that, Visishtadvaiti, because they are psychologically tuned to reject it, and they don't understand also, right? Therefore, this argument they won't accept. That's why he gave it as a second option. Bhuta Darshanat, the other one he has to accept. Anybody has to accept. The cloth becoming thread, becoming fiber, becoming atom, and keeps on going. It is within the dual world itself, it is an acceptable argument that even though they don't accept, where does it go and resolve? But at least that argument hetu that you give is enough to dismiss the nimittatva. But in this case, when you take abhuta darshanat, you are talking from the standpoint of a jnani. Therefore, they may come back and say, I don't even understand, right? You are just saying there is a mukti state. I am not even accepting that mukti state, is what he will say, he or she. That is why Bhashyakara here says, Nahi unmatta avagatam vastu anunmattairapi tata bhutam gamyate. This you understand, no? An unmatta, an intoxicated person or a lunatic person sees the world differently. Somebody who is on opium, high on some dope, will also see the world differently. It won't be the same way somebody else is going to see. Someone who has a cataract will see 2 moons or 4 moons or 10 moons, but one who doesn't have cataract will see only 1 moon. No, therefore, at least that much you can accept. So we have to say, even if you don't accept the Mukta Avastha, we are saying there is something called Mukta Avastha, and the view the world is seen as is very different. Therefore, you are asking this question from your perspective, which is not acceptable. That's the idea. Etena dvaya darshanam sankleshopaliptischa pratiyukta. So, by this, both the dvaya darshana and sankleshopalabdhi are dismissed because the causality argument, the perception itself doesn't prove the causality because it only proves that an experience is there, not a corresponding Vishaya is there outside. Okay. So that has been dismissed. He says, next one. Chittam na samsprishyartham nartha bhasam tataiva cha abhuto hi yatascharthaha nartha bhasastatah pritake. Chittam artham na samsprishyati तथा एव चित्तम अर्थाभासम न संस्पृशति हि यस्मात् यहि यतः अर्थः अभूतः अर्थाभासः न पृथक् तथा एव ततः अर्थाभासः न पृथक् चित्तम न अर्थम संस्पृशति. The mind does not touch the objects, are not related to any object. Na arthavasam tata eva artha abhasam. Also, it is not the mind which creates the object also. Or if you take artha abhasam, you can take also what, let's see what Bhashyakara says on arthabhasam. Chittatvat. So he doesn't explain arthabhasam. It is the idea. Okay. Artha abhasam, appearance, also na samsprishati. Okay. Whatever happens in mind, arthabhasam also chittaha na samsprishati. Chittam na samsprishati. Why do we take it like that? Arthaha abhutaha yataha. Why? Because there is no object which is external that we have already seen. Arthabhasaha api na pritak nasti. Okay. the object perception also is not separate from chittam. Therefore, all that exists is only chittam. That's the idea. That is the Vijnanavadin's contention. Okay. In fact, like I think I said earlier, in the next verse or two verses later, Bhashyakara clearly says, Prajnaptehe Sanimittattvam, the 25th Karika onwards, Ityadi Etadantam Vijnanavadinaha Bauddhasya Vachanam Bhahyartavadi Paksha Pratisheda Param Acharyena Anumoditam. Now you understand, right? So from 25 to 28, these four verses are not a typical Vedantin's way of looking at it. It is a Vijnanavadi Buddha's contention that we accept because they are close to what we say from the reality of external world perspective. That also dismisses the Bhahyartavadi Paksham. The Bhahyartavadi Paksha, Bhahyartavadi is Dvaitin. All Dvaitins are Bhahyartavadi. See, I think I told in one session, or I always say, there are only three Vadas possible. One is Dvaita Vada, whether it is Sankhya, whether it is Mimamsaka, whether it is Nayayika, or Vaiseshika, or Visishtadvaiti, or Dvaiti, Madhvadvaiti, I am saying, or any of the other Lokayatas also, right? Anybody, Charvaka, all these people are Dvaitins only. Some form of Dvaita. There is only shade of difference. So that is one Vada which is Dvaita Vada. Then the second is the Shunya Vada, which is actually nothing is there. It is direct opposite of Dvaita Vada. Dvaitis say there are many, not two. They say many, right? There is no two and all. Two means many. So there is nothing. That is the Sunyavada. The third is the Advaitavada. That's all. Okay. So the Shunyavadins have certain variants. They say Shanikya Vijnana, or it's not Shunya per se, but Shanikya Vijnanam lends itself to Sunyatvam. So those are like the Bauddhavada. So the Bauddha, Dvaita, and Advaita. These are the three possible. Okay, there is nothing else which is actually possible. Majority falls under Dvaita only, including the Abrahamic religions and all that. All of them are Dvaita, technically. So what I was saying is from 25 to 28 are that Vada. Chittam na samsprishati artham nartha bhasam tataivacha. That's why it is artha bhasam and all that. If you understand the Vijnanavadins, then it will be clear. So for them, there is only artha bhasam. The chittam na samsprishati artha bhasam. Okay, so that is the contention. Abhuto hi yatascha arthaha na arthavasaha tataha pratak. The artha is also not there. Arthavasa is also not there as separately. There is only chittam. That is why it is Vijnanavadi contention. All that is there is only chittam. And then in the 28th, 29th verse, chittam also is finally dismissed by us. Okay. Anyway, yasmat nasti bahyam nimittam ataha chittam na sprishati artham bhahyalambana vishayam. So in the previous verse, the nimittam itself is not there, has already been established. Because any object you take, it turns out to be only a karyam with another karanam in it. And that karanam also becomes a karyam with some other karanam, and it goes on till there are no words for you to go further. If you find more words, again that will lead to certain state where there are no more words. That is the argument used to show that there is no bahya nimittam. Therefore, what can chittam go and touch? Chittam na sprishati artham bhahyalambana vishayam. Napi artha abhasam chittatvat swapna chittavat. The chittam, there are things which are visible in chittam, that is artha abhasam. Like in the case of dream, there also the chittam doesn't touch it. It is just there on which the vritti comes and goes. Abhuto hi jagarite api स्वप्नार्थवदेव बाह्यः शब्दादि अर्थः यतः उक्तहेतुत्वाच्च. Therefore, for this, with the same logic, स्वप्नार्थवत् जागरिते अपि अभूतः एव बाह्य शब्दादि अर्थः. Like in the case of swapna, it appears in swapna as though there are external objects, but actually there are no. It is the same even in the case of Vivekan. नापि अर्थ आभासः चित्तात् पृथक् चित्तमेव हि घटादि अर्थवत् अवभासते यथा स्वप्ने. These are all Vijnanavadins' contention, which we accept also, because you look at it, no, any object you see, it is entirely only your indriya experience, right? When I say there is a pot, there are 5 sensory perceptions which together we call as pot. That's all. There is a touch, there is a taste, there is a sight, there is a smell, there is a taste, right? That's all. That is what is called a pot. That is what is called a mountain. That is, so it's all indriya experience, and that indriya experience is not separate from the buddhi, chitta. That is the Vijnanavadin's view. Everything is just how do you separate a pot from the pot vritti? You can never. Any object is not separable from the vritti at all. That is that. So next one, 27th verse. Nimittam na sada chittam sprishati advasu strishu animitto viparyasaha katam tasya bhavishyati. Nimittam trishu advasu kaleshu sada na chittam samsprishati. Animittaha viparyasaha katam tasya bhavishyati. Va animittaha yaha tasya saha viparyasaha katam tasya bhavishyati. Chittam nimittam na samsprishati. There is no relationship between the nimittam and chittam, like we have already seen in 3 points of time. Then how can it be a delusion also? Only if you read the Bhashyam you can understand why delusion is brought in, because there is a question. He asks a question, Nanu viparyasaha tarhi asati gatadu gatadi abhasata chittasya tata cha sati aviparyasaha kvachid vaktavyaha iti. So if you are saying that there is no actual pot, because you are saying pot reduces to clay, clay reduces to something else, that's what you are saying. Okay. then asati ghatadau viparyasaha eva. Ghatadi abhasata chittasya. That means it's a wrong knowledge. It is a wrong notion. It's a false knowledge. That's what you are saying. It is actually not a part. It appears as a part. Therefore, it is a false knowledge you are saying, which means there should be some other true knowledge of it. Tata च सति अविपर्यासः क्वचित् वक्तव्यः. Don't take even the pot example. You will always say pot means it's clay. Let's take the cloth. Cloth is thread, thread is fiber. You keep on going, and then say that okay, you cannot call this a cloth because it is. We don't even know what is actually there. It keeps reducing to something else. You are saying that means it's a false knowledge that it is a cloth. So there should be some other true knowledge of it. We have to find the true knowledge. Why are you saying it is all only in the buddhi? There may be a true knowledge, something else. You should find out what that is. No, that's the question. Okay. For which is this answer? Nimittam Vishayam Atita Anagata Vartamanadvasu Trishu Api Sada Chittam Na Samsprishe Devahi. It is not only presently you are not seeing the cloth and it is not a cloth, but even in the future and never in the past, it has been, it is anything, it's cloth at all. Okay. Also, the chittam does not touch it. That is the most important thing. It's not just this cloth or a thread or a fiber. It doesn't touch anything that is there. See, that's what is important. Nimittam na samsprishadeva. यदि ही क्वचित् संस्पृशेत् सः अविपर्यासः परमार्थः इत्यतः सदपेक्षया असति घटे घटाभासता विपर्यासः स्यात् न तु तदस्ति कदाचिदपि चित्तस्य अर्थसंस्पर्शनम्. If it is touching something, no, यदि क्वचित् संस्पृशेत्, if there is an object to be touched, then you can classify whether it is viparyasa or aviparyasa, the true cloth or non-true cloth and all that. Aviparyasah paramartah tadapekshaya asadi gate ghatabhasada viparyasah syat. So something is a non-existent, another is existent and all you can divide, because if you see one thing on the other, you can have viparyasaha, but we are saying there is no object being touched at all. This is very, very brilliant way of thinking by Vijnanavadi. In fact, it helps us understand, because there is never an object being touched. An object, once you, any object being touched is converted into just the sensory experiences, then where is something else being touched? Touch itself is only an experience, no? So you cannot land on anything, because all that is there is only experience. Natu tadasti kadachidapi chittasya artha samsparshanam. So never the chitta will touch an object. तस्मात् अनिमित्तः विपर्यासः कथं तस्य चित्तस्य भविष्यति. अनिमित्तः विपर्यासः कथं चित्तस्य, without any nimitta, okay, how can the chitta have any viparyasa? न कथंचित् विपर्यासः अस्ति इति अभिप्रायः. So never is there any viparyasa, false knowledge. Aviparyasa means true knowledge. If there is an object, then only there can be a false knowledge of it or true knowledge of it. When there is no object at all, where is the question of true knowledge? It's not that there is something else which you are looking at as cloth, or there is something else which you are looking at as pot. Of course, pot is clay, but then clay also is not clay, no, that is also a karya. It also reduces to something else, and that something else also will reduce to something else. You can keep on going till you know the name of it. After that, you will stop. Therefore, there is no true knowledge or false knowledge, because there is nothing outside the chit. अयमेव हि स्वभावः चित्तस्य यदुत असति निमित्ते घटादौ तद्वद् अवभासनम्. Is it, that is the chitta swabhava. There is only name and form of gata, pata, mata and all that, but there is no actual gata, but you see it. Now the 28. Tasman na jayate chittam chitta drishyam na jayate tasya pashyanti ye jatim khevai pashyanti te padam. Khevai pashyanti te padam. So if somebody is seeing footprints in the sky, when the birds are flying, you want to see which route did the birds fly. Can I go and see the footprints of the birds so that I can find out whether the birds flew from east to west or south to east? Where did it fly? Okay. Ke vai pashyanti padam te. Who, okay, the ones who jatim pashyanti. The birth is seen of what? Chittam chittadrishyam. Never is chittam born nor chittadrishyam born. Okay. So the birth of chittam is where we differ from Vijnanavadi. Chittadrishyam is not born, is what Vijnanavadins say. But we go to the next step and say chittam itself is also actually mithya only. Jnapti alone is satyam. प्रज्ञप्तेः सनिमित्तत्वम् इत्यादि एतदन्तं विज्ञानवादिनः बौद्धस्य वचनं बाह्यार्थवादि पक्षप्रतिषेधपरम् आचार्येण अनुमोदितम्. Gaudapada has accepted what? Bahyarthavadi Paksha Pratishedhaparam Bauddhasya Vachanam. The Buddhist view which dismisses the Bahyarthavadi Dvaitin's point of view, that has been accepted by Gaudapada from the verse 25 till 28. Prajnaptehe Sanimittatvam onwards till this one. The Acharya has accepted Vijnanavadi Bauddha's statements that all that is there is only Chitta Spandanam. That is why this Prakaranam is called Alata Shanti Prakaranam. This Alata is firebrand which just goes around and creates all the shapes. And that is same as what these Vijnanavadins say. What are they saying? It is all Chitta Drishyam only. It is all Chittam only which is creating all this experience. That is Vijnanavadin contention. And that is used to dismiss all the Dvaitins. Like I said, there are only three contentions. Okay? Dvaitin, Bauddha, Advaiti. Now Bauddha has dismissed Vijnanavadi by showing that, Bauddha has dismissed Bhakyarthavadi. The Vijnanavadi Dvaita, Vijnanavadi Bauddha has dismissed the Bhakyarthavadi Dvaitin. And Bhakyarthavadi includes your Sankhya, Mimamsa, Vaiseshika, Nayyayika, Charvaka, Ishtadvaiti, Madhvadvaiti, then Abrahamic faiths, anything you take has been dismissed by the contention of Vijnanavadi, which you can't dismiss because all that is here is only the chitta vyavahara. There is nothing more. Okay, that acharyena anumoditam has been accepted. Now what we need to do? Pratama Malla Nyaya, we have to just dismiss Vijnanavadi contention and show that Advaitam. See, Vijnanavadi also is technically saying Advaitam only, right? Everything is only Chittam. That's all he is saying. The only thing we are doing is that Spandanatvam is Mithya, Chinmatrameva Satyam. So that Alata, which is the Chitta Spandanam, is now resolved. That's why it is Shanti. Alatasya Shanti. So in this verse, he dismisses the Chitta Spandana and says, even Chittam, you are trying to understand. A mind cannot understand the truth of the mind. Simple, right? That is what he says very beautifully. Chittena Chitta Swarupam Drashtum Ashakyam. You will see it in the next session. Okay. So, in the last but three. तेनैव चित्तेन चित्तस्वरूपं द्रष्टुम् अशक्यं पश्यन्तः केवै पश्यन्ति ते पदं पक्ष्यादीनाम्. Therefore, in with your mind, if you are saying anyway this mind is what is spinning, how can that mind understand itself? That's what is going to question. We'll see later. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamādaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.